Yo, this might be the last one in this series, unless I come up with more ideas. I'm pre-recording these. So I want to kind of combine a lot of the techniques of this series and kind of show you a way to generate sounds that's a bit different to designing each on their own. It basically involves a lot of randomization and kind of using your understanding of how a sound usually works to create different variations of it very quickly. So what I've got here is, for example, something inspired by Christian Davichi. It's a kind of UI sound generator that just spits out the different UI sound every time. Or here is a thing I've made that just generates impact sounds that are very loud. What I want to do for this episode is make something a bit simpler, and that's just a kick drum generator. Because kicks are very simple sounds in a way, and this kind of can help us understand some of the principles at work here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to play some MIDI note here, and it doesn't really matter which one, and I'm going to be using Bitwig's grid for this. There are also ways to randomize stuff and any other DAW reaper and so on. You'll figure out your own ways of kind of doing this in your DAW. I'll be using Bitwig because that's what I do. Polygrid, and we want to kind of create a kick. So a kick at its core is a sine wave with a pitch and a volume envelope. So let's really focus on that. Let's generate our volume and our pitch envelope. And because we kind of want some variations in here, we're gonna kind of use slightly more sophisticated methods to kind of generating these. So let's start with our volume envelope, and let's take a look at the scope. And we'll be multiplying our volume envelope by our sine. And tuning our sine, I don't know, to something like, let's say C0. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring in our first parameter that's randomized using a random LFO, setting this to hold, and then trigger to note. So every note it spits out a different value. You can see here, I'm hitting play and stop. So we can kind of pitch this up to 12 semitones, so we can kind of get different fundamentals for a sine wave kick and turn off key tracking. So basically now we get a note between C0 and B1 or B0. If we set up our gate length, of course. So our gate basically is our envelope for the sine, our volume envelope. So this is just going to be a value we multiply with our sine. We're going to get a gate in here, and then kind of bring that here and set this to fast and set this trigger here, and then we can kind of see this is kind of our volume envelope right now. It still sounds bad, don't worry, we'll get to that. So what we want to do is we kind of want a short fade in and a bit of a longer fade out, so kind of the kick can ring out. Short fade in, like really short, and long fade out. So we want to set these ranges kind of cleverly. So we have three parameters: the kind of length of the gate, the fade in, the fade out. You can see here, basically, we've got our attack, our release, and our sustain time. So we're going to create three randoms here. Just duplicate this 3 times. And then randomize all of these. We want kind of to set these random amounts in a way that makes sense, of course. Though we don't really want to much fade it. We want maybe slight soft fade in for some kicks. But we don't ever want like a really slow attack, because it is a kick drum after all. Then gate length, we want sort of a minimum somewhere here, and then maybe let it get quite long. But we don't want to make a subwave, we want to make a kick. So let's check this out. Bit much, so let's maybe shorten it a bit. And then slope downwards. We always want a bit of a release here. and then sometimes a bit of a longer release. So these are kind of a basic volume envelopes. You could do more with this, like add this little dip that some people add to kicks, but I never really do that. So next, let's construct our pitch envelope. When I think of a kick's pitch envelope, I really think of 3 different phases. So let's kind of construct these here. We're gonna get our AD envelope is really what we want to use. So let's maybe make sure that this note is long enough for our kicks. And then I kind of think of 3 different phases. The transient phase, there is the kind of the punch phase, and then there is the kind of ring out phase of our pitch envelope. The transient phase is kind of a steep sort of descent. So something very sharp, very steep, and very short. Then we are going to combining this with a punch phase, which we're going to be attenuating, and min-max combining these to basically kind of make sure, okay, this kind of takes over when the transient phase goes to 0. So basically the transient is really short. This is kind of slower. You can see we're kind of getting this kind of initial short burst and then the second kind of decaying thing. So let's maybe set our random times for these. Maybe make the short burst sort of quite, and we want to set these to digital, so they really get quick transients. So maybe make the short burst really quite short. We might tweak this in a bit. Our second phase, which is going to be our decay, is going to take a bit longer. Our punch. So this is kind of this sort of bit of the pitch envelope here. Maybe not quite as long. Sort of this here. And then we might also randomize the range for the punch a bit. Sometimes the punch is more, sometimes less. And also maybe also slightly randomize the range for the transient. So kind of they're not always the same amount. We're not hearing anything of these, by the way. And then just add a third stage, which is really super low. Doesn't get the third thing here, which basically just super slow. Kind of last bit of pitch movement in the kick that really rings out for quite a long time and has like basically no attenuation and is combined with another min-max here. I hope that all makes sense so far. As you can see, we're basically deconstructing the kick and kind of randomizing the different parameters of it. Kind of keeping it a kick, but making sure we get all sorts of different variations of what the kick can be. I make this a bit longer by default and kind of attenuate it a bit more. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use this as a modulation signal to modulate the pitch, and now it's going to start sounding like a kick. So let's just set this to max. Yeah, this is way too slow. What's going on here? This is way too slow. So lots of kind of vaguely kick-shaped things. We're gonna push this into a limiter just so we can hear it better. I think sometimes this gets a bit high, so let's maybe reduce this random amount. Let's maybe give this a bit more actually. Then let's do some other techniques I like to do with kicks and randomize them too. I like to use the fold sometimes. but only for the first kind of bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a fold, and we're going to attenuate it, and we're going to modulate the decay as we did with the pitch envelope. So let's add a fold envelope. And then we want to modulate two parameters, which is basically the decay. Maybe not as much decay, and also not as much as more. And then we also want to modulate the attenuate here. So how much fold essentially. And maybe not give it quite as much amount here. Kind of, yeah, bring this down a little bit. And maybe limit the length of this. See how we're kind of reining in the randomness here a bit. Till most of our kicks sound pretty decent. Another thing I like to do is get noise and use it as a transient, and because we want each to be different, we just use random noise and then use an AD here, funnel this into the FM, get an attenuate. And basically what we want to randomize here is set this to digital, randomize the decay, randomize the attenuate amount. So phase, let me set this to 100% or something, randomize this and randomize the actually. And a lot of these sounds are going to be pretty bad. The idea is that we just generate a ton of them, so we kind of can pick out the good ones. And I'm also maybe not giving it quite as much time as it needs. But this is the idea for our kind of random kick setup. Let's maybe give this a bit more sustain. And let's maybe less attack. Like kind of. Now we can EQ this a bit. Look at our scope here. Kick drums. We want to randomize it more, of course. This is not enough. We want more variation. So let's randomize saturator. Kind of just, I don't know, randomize like the knee. Randomize where exactly it clips and randomize a bit how much it clips. This kind of thing. Also maybe randomize the low pass filter. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a transient shaper just to kind of make sure. Basically this is kind of a back and forth of adding variation and then reining it in. Because of course we do want all of these to sound like kicks and none of them to sound like, I don't know, random nonsense. So let's maybe do another trick, FX layer, parallel reverb with a convolution, like a room, make something kind of short, give this kick a sort of character, saturate that convolution. And then randomize how loud it is, because we want to randomize a ton. That's our goal here. Set this to note. Let me just restart my audio interface. Normal, don't worry about it. That's just what happens because my audio interface is a bit old. And there we go. So this is gonna kind of be our layer. We want this to be slightly high pass and we want this to be mostly on the sides. We're gonna turn down the mids a bit. maybe put this earlier in the chain. Then we can also, I don't know, start thinking about maybe adding some more, some other layers. So we can bring in like a test tone with some noise that just follows the kick here with an envelope follower. Kind of randomize the rise and fall maybe. And also randomize the kind of amount, I guess, like the gain here. So sometimes we get a bit of noise, sometimes not. And basically now what we would do is we would get this. Okay, we have our kick drum here. And then we would just join this here and just loop this. Make like tons and tons of kicks. And then bounce these out. And normalize them. And then we have an absurd amount of kicks, and most of these are going to be shite. Some of these are going to be pretty nice. So let's maybe listen through them. This is kind of how this all works. Horrible. Maybe a bit short, but kinda neat. Usable, but a bit harsh. Maybe. No. Too much noise. Kinda nice. Too clicky, like too harsh in the highs with this resonance. No. Maybe. No. No. So yeah, and we didn't set up parameters upgrade here, but you get the idea. Maybe. Maybe. No. Maybe. Let me maybe see if I have a kick drum generator that I spent a bit more time on. Or let's just search for generator. No, I have a snare generator though. So that's kind of interesting. So this is something I made. Basically same idea, but for snares. See lots of randoms, and then it just puts out different snares. Most of these are bad, some of these are cool. Fast way to generate lots of snares. Using very similar principles, so you get the idea. Lots of variations if you ever need lots of slightly subtle different things, and then just bouncing them out and getting kind of picking out the best ones, discarding the rest. Cheers!